and welcome to Beyond the Barracks, the podcast where service ends but the story begins. And today I'm joined, and I think it's going to be quite a serious conversation, I don't know, by the amazing Sarah Atherton, veteran and former MP for Wrexham.
Hi, Gina. Well, I hope it's not going to be too serious. When you and I get together, we tend to just gas a bit, don't we? So let's just see how it goes. We're going to cover some serious topics, hopefully, but hopefully it won't be too draining on people listening.
Well, you're doing some really important work, so I think that's which we'll get into as we get along your career and life. So if we start straight away with, what did your early years sort of look like, and where did you grow
up? Grew up in split really between Chester and North Wales, Porthmadog and Carnarvon. So my dad was from Chester, my mum was from Carnarvon, and big family, big sort of Welsh family, and I was the only girl. So I was always in goal, or I was always the football post if someone didn't want to take the jacket off. And so I grew up with boys, and I sort of held my own. And, and I was treated very equally by them all. I mean, when I say boys, I mean a sea of boys. There was no girls whatsoever. Went to school in Chester, got a clutch of O-levels. I got 10 O-levels, all low grades, C's. But I didn't want to stay on at school, and you could leave school at 16 then. And I wanted to see the world and all the rest of it. So I went to work in a bar, and as you do, and then I was a chambermaid and bits and pieces in cafes and whatever. And then I thought, you know what, I should have gone back to school really, but I didn't. I wasn't going to go back now. I wasn't going to lose face. So I decided to go traveling. So I went off to Berlin in the 80s and worked behind a bar in Berlin. And that's where I first learned about sort of the Cold War. The Berlin Wall was up, Checkpoint Charlie, all the rest of it, and the British Army. And it was really super exciting. And Berlin in the 80s is like nothing I've experienced for the rest of my life. It was happening. And I thought, well, I've been there about 3 months, and I thought, well, this is really quite. I'll go back and join the army. So I'm just getting a cup of tea. Thank you. So I came back. I did think about the Navy. I never realised that women couldn't go to sea. I mean, what's the point of joining the Navy if your women couldn't go to sea? So I was quickly dismissed. And there was a recruitment office in Chester. I walked in. So 18, not far from 18, really. A couple of months after 18, I walked in. Met a female recruitment sergeant, and that's it. The rest is history. I did my tests, my medicals, very topical in the news at the moment. Did all this. They said, "Yep, you'd be great. You're off into the intelligence corps," and that's what happened. I joined the army. It was all very quick.
Yeah. So when you were in Berlin, then was that before the wall came down?
Yeah, I got my little chunk. Got my little chunk of wall. I've written the name on it. The border guards. It was all very, very exciting. And it was right in the middle of the Cold War, and it was very, very interesting times. I mean, the army now is just doesn't even look like anything I knew when I joined. But it was good times. Good times, exciting, and that's why I went into the intelligence school. So again,
did you ever serve back in Germany?
No, I didn't. My first husband was in Fallenbostel. He was in the Cheshire Regiment, and I visited quite a lot. But no, I never actually served in Germany. So no, but it was interesting. I was an analyst. I sort of signed up to be an analyst, and then thought an operator sounded far more exciting. I wanted to change, but they said no. I'd had my vetting by then, so I was an analyst.
Yeah, so
I used to monitor what was Czechoslovakia, and I think the most exciting thing that really happened to me was I picked up that they could wear their own underpants, because until then they had to have army issue sort of underpants, and because we were listening in, and they could wear their own underpants, and there was a small revolution over the fact that they were fed up of cabbage soup. So that was the most exciting thing. I'll probably breach some official secrets act now, but that was the most exciting thing that really happened.
I don't know whether that's classified anymore. Yeah. So, yeah, the intelligence corps is kind of one of those corps that people, I don't know, it's like one of those jobs that everyone wants to go in because they hear, you know, if you're not going to go and join the paras or the Marines, and you've got, and there's lots of smoke and mirrors around it. So you were an analyst, because I know there's different jobs where you can look at photographs and interpret that. So you were more on the other side of things.
Codes and things like that. I mean,
Yeah.
even the intelligence course changed beyond recognition for me.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't really have phones in those days, you know, no mobile phones. So the whole core has completely changed from what I knew. But basically codes and listening in, working with signals.
Yeah, yeah, because I'm ex Signals, so obviously we used to work quite closely with your guys, and we'd always have arguments because we had similar trades on whose was the best trade, the Signals or the in court.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The only meeting I've ever fallen asleep in, I'm afraid to say that, but to be fair, in those days you'd drink at lunchtime, so we'd been taken out for lunch to a pub. It was at GCHQ in Cheltenham, and I'd had half and a pie and chips or something, and then we went back and I fell asleep in the meeting, and there was only 3 of us in it, and no one woke me up.
Yeah, you were allowed to do things like that.
We were allowed to do things like that in the 80s, but anyway.
I remember, like, it'd be acceptable if somebody was asleep in the workshop because they'd had too much of a skinful the night before, because it's like, oh yeah, he was a good lad. So
I tell you what, times have completely changed.
Yeah. So you started in the Inn Corps and then you moved to nursing. Was that still in the military?
No. So I was married, and it's the usual posted apart. Someone had to give. Dual serving couple. I gave, and I went nursing. So I went nursing here in Wrexham, where I still live.
Oh, yeah, we're still very close to me.
And yeah, I think we had similar accents, apparently.
Yeah, we do.
So I went nursing, and where I then became an MP in Wrexham. I then became a district nurse, specialised in district nursing. And then I couldn't understand why, you know, I was going into someone's house day in, day out with COPD, breathing problems, and there's water trickling down the walls, or there's damp or mildew. And it's like, well, you know, unless you solve the housing issue, you're never going to solve the respiratory problems. So then I went to Liverpool to do social work. Did a master's in social work, became a social worker, and I specialised in older people and mental health. And I did that in this area where I am now for about 27 years. And and this is something that, you know, with the military and nursing and social work, it's all about people. It's about duty. It's about service. It's about people come first. And I'm very much of the mindset, because people used to say, well, how on earth can you join the Conservative Party when you're a social worker? Surely you're a socialist. And I'm going, actually, all social workers don't realise it, but they're actually conservative. They're not socialist, because you work in a way where you give people the tools to help themselves. And you only do for people when they absolutely can't do it for themselves. You protect the most vulnerable in society. But for everyone else, you give them the tools so they can be self-reliant. And that's more of a conservative principle than it is a socialist principle. So I'd reached 50. I'd worked all my life. I'd been a single parent all my life. I'd struggled. I'd been homeless. I'd been on benefits. And then suddenly I thought, you know what? I just need a break. So I went part-time, and I was bored. I was bored within about a month. And I became a community counsellor here where I live now. And it was all about green blue algae in the lake, dog poo bins, telephone boxes, defibrillators. I absolutely loved it. Fates, church fates, grass cutting, you know, school play equipment, all about that. Absolutely loved it. And then the Conservatives came to me and said, have you thought about standing? And I said, oh, don't know. Don't know. But I always like an adventure. My whole life has never gone to plan, by the way. Nothing in that really, apart from going into the army. I sort of fell into everything else. It wasn't my great ambition to have when I was 16 and left school, to have 4 careers in the army, nursing, social work, and then an MP. It just happened that way. And some of the things I like to do is particularly teach young people about resilience, because we all have problems. We all have the dark times. But it's about grabbing opportunities, being extrovert, going out there, don't look inwards, and recognizing when you need help, but then getting yourself out of that help if you possibly can. And this is what I think that veterans tend to do. They tend to try and get on with their lives because they've got all these fantastic tools they've had around the resilience piece and making the best of it in innovation. So nothing has ever gone to plan. And I try to talk to young people about the resilience piece. And actually, life didn't go to plan. I didn't want to be a single parent because it's hard. But I was. And, you just have to sort of sometimes just get on with it and take the best from it and then try and improve the situation you're in. So, and the other thing as well, leaving school at 16 in the 80s, I didn't know a thing about constitution. I didn't study politics, wasn't interested, far too busy as a single mum, trying to keep a roof over my head. But I always voted because my mother told me to because of the suffragettes. So I always voted. Yeah. Voted for sort of whoever I thought was going to do the best in my local community rather than the wider picture. So I thought, well, I'm bored. I'm 50. I either get a motorbike and some leathers or I try and pitch and go to Parliament. And lo and behold, a few months later, there I am, not knowing one end of an order paper to another, not knowing about the British Constitution, not really knowing about politics. And I'm stood in Westminster, never really done public speaking, scares me to death, always have to prepare for everything, can't do anything on the hoof. And really, thinking, what the heck have I done? But I remember my husband pushing me through the doors because I was nearly crying at the front of Portcullis House, and I never usually cry, very rarely cry. And he pushed me through and said, you owe it to the people of Wrexham. You've got a duty to those people now. And I do. And that, I swear, has come from the military and 27 years serving the public. I have a duty to the people of Wrexham. So that's how I ended up in Parliament.
Yeah, and I find that more and more when I speak to veterans and stuff, that everybody, and we tend to have this thing of service, and it's something that we maybe didn't realise when we were kids, when we left and signed on the dotted line, but it kind of carries us through life, what we've been taught, doesn't it? The resilience you spoke about and everything, and then that underlying thing that we need to we probably don't need to, but we need to serve the country and the people around you that you affect. With being a counsellor, you see it directly, don't you?
Yeah, because you don't have a lesson in service, do you? You don't, join your military training. You don't go in and say, right, this is your lecture on service, and, but it's sort of insidious. It's built into you via the environment and the culture you're in, because not everyone has a sense of service. In fact, sometimes I'm a bit disappointed when I see people's attitude to other people or the service culture that we have or don't have in this country. But by and large, every veteran I've met has service woven into the fabric of their personalities.
Yeah, definitely. And you probably missed the fact you made history, didn't you, by becoming was it the first female Conservative MP in Wales?
I know, yeah. And the first.
It's a bit of a landmark.
I know. Well, do you know, I don't tend to think about those because that sort of overwhelms me a bit. So I just move on. It's like social media, and I always transmit, I never receive, because I think sometimes I get wobbles because you get this imposter syndrome, particularly women suffer it. And of course, social media is very toxic as well. And you think, well, do you know what? I'm just going to keep going. Unless I do something seriously wrong, I'm just going to keep going in the way I'm doing it because I feel it's probably right. All MPs make mistakes. Anyone in public office makes mistakes. It's just how you handle it.
Yeah. And I think the thing you were saying about, and I mean, this is probably how I've always voted, apart from when I was younger, when we were from a Labour family, being on the Wirral, and you vote Labour because that's what we do in our area. I've always, as I've become an adult and become a bit more aware of it, is I've voted for the MPs that I know in my area will make a difference.
Yeah.
And I can see their campaigns, behind outside of Westminster when they're in their constituents and meeting and changing small things that don't get measured nationally. And I think that's for me, like what you said, is how I've always kind of cast my vote. None of this, where they're trying to get governments out and they're just going to vote.
Tactical voting.
Yeah.
It's
important what happens in your local area, really, because a lot of the national things already affect us. The smaller things probably affect our lives more than the bigger things. She says as the tax looms.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But the thing is, people need to vote. People need to vote. We've had one government in Wales for 26 years, and we've got the worst health service in the UK. We've got some of the lowest educational attainment in Europe. We've got the worst productivity because we've probably had the same government, and it's good to have challenge and refresh and churn because it changes things. It looks at things differently. So I always try and encourage people to vote regardless of who they're voting for. And it's a democratic right. Women fought. Lots of countries around the world don't have this privilege of voting that we do.
Exactly. And then people then moan about whatever the government's doing, and I'm like, did you vote? And they're like, well, no, because it went.
I do that. So, I don't like this. Well, did you vote? No. Well, what do you expect? What do you expect if you didn't vote? Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, and it wouldn't make a difference, but
That's what they say. It wouldn't make a difference. But I said, if everyone says that, then nothing's going to make a difference.
No, exactly. So you ended up on the Defence Select Committee, didn't you? And then you did or started the really important work, which is still going on now, which was protecting those who serve, for the women in the armed forces, from recruitment to life. And that's, I know I did the survey, but what was the most surprising thing that you came up with or found out from it?
So in 2021, women had repeatedly been disproportionately represented in the complaint system, and recruitment targets had been missed. So Tobias Elder at the time said, "Oh, would you have a look at this?" And of course I would. Of course I was going to do that. But of course, like most veterans, if we're going to do something, we put our heart and soul into it. We don't do half measures. I don't do half measures, which means usually your workload's doubled or tripled. So I got together with a small team of the Secretariat and said, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it properly. We want to speak to serving women as well as veterans. And of course, they weren't allowed to speak to us about their service. I did a bit of jiggery pokery with the Secretary of State at the time, and he lifted the Defence Instruction Notice, which gave us access. And we had 4,106. I'm going to have that tattooed somewhere. Women that responded to the inquiry, and it was really groundbreaking. There's been a lot of people, men and women, trying to highlight some of the problems happening with women's experiences in the military. But of course, unless you're in Parliament, unless the media are looking down at you, unless you can hold the Secretary of State to account, it just gets brushed under the carpet. You get cancelled. I couldn't be cancelled. And when I found out what actually was the experience of women, there was no way they were going to cancel me. So some of the things that I found shocking was things like body armour built for men. And there was women out in foxholes in Afghan, and the body armour wouldn't fit across the chest. So they're in a firing position and it's up here. So they've got the shoulder up here. This is here. They've got gaps where you can get vital organ. You can. The helmet's to one side because he still had to wear a bun, and the bun was, you've got, and it's just like, what is going on? Why that's a duty of care issue. That is beyond belief. And then there was no health specific women's health policies. Uniform was still in male sizes, webbing. And it's just like, what the heck is going on? That in some way has all changed. Far too slow, by the way, Gina, but it is getting there. But the issues that really shocked me was the amount of women sexually assaulted. It was shocking. And we had women suicidal phoning the office in Parliament. We didn't know quite what to do. We didn't know it was a steamroller. I had no idea. I just thought it would be about equipment and things like that. I had no idea what was coming. What I just absolutely floored me. And that made me angry and more determined to stand up for these women and to find out why this is happening and to try and challenge that with the MOD and the government at the time. And of course, we all know the MOD, they don't like being challenged, which makes me dig in even more. And there's the resilience piece. But now it's an injustice for me. It's an injustice for these women and some men as well about sexual assault. And over the years, we've had more males coming forward being victims of sexual assault in the military. So that was the biggest hang up for me. And I remember taking one call from a woman who said she can't go on, obviously talking about it, re-traumatized her. And I couldn't put the phone down. And I thought, well, what the heck do I do? Who do I phone for help here? This is way beyond me and what I can offer at this moment. And I remember phoning a few of the larger charities saying, I need help. And this is what I'm doing. I need help. And oh my goodness, the door's closed. The door's closed. And there's one charity that didn't. And it was Salute Her up in the Northeast. And at that time, they said, yes, send all the women our way. And at that time, I think they had about 70 women on their books. They've now got over 5,500 of women that have been sexually assaulted. Some still serving. They're getting referrals from NHS England, from the military. And with this, seriously, the MOD have seriously got a problem there, and it's not adequately being addressed.
No, and I can't. I guess when I speak to people obviously served, it was, and it's horrible to say, but it was kind of some of the abuse that we all suffered was just classed as banter at the time, or the society we were in, and what I can't get, and I it was only last year I went up to a regular unit, and I gave a speech, and it was put on by the CO, and I was chatting to the women afterwards that are serving, and they were like, it's still there. And this was with a CO that had his eyes open to it and was trying to stamp it out, and it's still underlyingly there. But the only way we can change it is by, I guess, talking about it.
Well,
you and the charities. I know SAFA's started a new section up, haven't they? I think it's this week or something.
Yes, it's there's a lot of charities now that have realised that this is the new domain, and there's quite a bit of money out there supporting charities to do work for women, which is really good. But it is about talking about it. It is about keeping the profile up. It is about embarrassing the MOD, embarrassing the ministers to take action. Because I'm not in Parliament anymore to keep shouting. And I have worried that the issue and the profile has declined a bit. So I see it as my duty to keep it high on the agenda. Because if it wasn't, people don't want bad news coming to their door. The MOD certainly don't want it. Ministers are busy. They don't want it either. And it would just be pushed to the back. And I'm not prepared for it to be pushed to the back because I've just been talking. I chat to everyone. I was chatting to a young girl who was going in the hospital, going for blood tests, and she's joining. And I was saying how exciting and whatever. And I want her to have a better experience than the women I've spoken to the women in my day. But you mentioned, and that's what keeps me going for the future generations of service women. But you mentioned something about banter and of its time. And I get that. I get it.
We thought it was the normal, I think. And it's not till we get out and we start speaking and think, God, that was really bad.
But we're looking at it through modern eyes.
Yeah.
If we were looking at it through the eyes in the 80s, when I joined, that was part of society anyway.
Yeah.
You had the Sweeney on television and things like this. It was a different society. I'm conscious that we can't look back and judge what happened then. So I have not got a problem personally, and I'll probably get criticised for this, for banter. It's gallows humour. As a social worker, some of the things we faced, if you ever heard us talking to each other, if we had social media and someone would record, you go, that is horrendous. But it was our coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And actually,
I think it still is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's still got to be in stressful situations. And that's the problem with social media and people filming. It's taken out of context.
Yeah. So I don't mind banter, but I don't mind, that sort of thing. But I can clearly see where others probably can't when that crosses the line. And that's the problem. Some people can't see when banter becomes bullying, harassment, intimidation.
Yeah.
I can, but then I've had 27 years of this sort of health and social care experience. People can't see that, and that's the problem that we have now. And then we've got DE&I saying all banter's wrong. Well, actually, I don't quite agree with that. Some banter is necessary, but what you need to teach and what people need to learn is when that crosses the line. And that's the problem. And I was criticised when I did this report. Someone sent me a T-shirt saying, "You've woked up the army." And when I was doing this report, and I thought, you know what, I don't care. If in your definition, woke means you can rape people and get away with it, then hell yes, I want to stop that. And if that means you're calling me woke, then I don't care. I'll put the T-shirt on. Because, woke is one thing, rape and intimidation is another. And again, I can clearly see the difference. The problem is, can people in the military see the difference? And it looks very much as if they can't. And then you get DE&I coming in and overreaching. There's a place for DE&I, there absolutely is, to make it equal. So we've all got the same opportunity, and then the best person wins. So I'm all for meritocracy. I'm all for keeping standards high, and and the best person wins. The best person for that job gets the job. I believe in that. But when they are positively discriminating and using techniques like they did with the RAF around white males being penalised for being white males against females and people from ethnic minorities, that is wrong. And DE&I is overreached, in my opinion. But there we go. Some people will probably disagree with me.
Yeah, well, I think it's kind of, if you like, starting to level up with people taking a more common sense approach, isn't it? With the D&I, because we all know, like what you said, we need to treat everyone fairly and give everyone the same opportunity, but then you can't have one group like positively discriminated against because of how they are.
Another.
So yeah, so it is a very and as you say, it's like, the things you expected from that report were the kit didn't fit, and I know particularly one occasion I was deployed and I never wore my body armour because it was too big, so I just didn't bother because it was like, what's the point, So it's getting things that can be sorted because that's, if you like, an easy fix potentially.
Yeah, low hanging fruit.
Yeah, the other things that are quite more complex and deep rooted in the culture of the military and stuff. But it
But
needs to
they're
be.
still there, Gina. That's my concern. They are still there, and
Yeah.
service women reach out for me, and servicemen reach out for me increasingly. And the problems still exist. The deep-rooted culture, the misogyny, the hierarchical, male-dominated system, the promotional system, it's all fighting against addressing some of these injustices that's going on. The complaints system is just in a mess. I have concerns about the court-martial system and the Service Prosecution Authority, and what's going on around there. So this is the higher fruit, which is much harder to tackle, and the issues remain.
Yeah. And so if you think you could, have your time again as Veterans Minister, or what else were you? Ministry of Defence Minister, were you?
Only for a short while, but Ministry of Defence.
Yeah, I think I met you just as you just
been sacked.
Got it, or been sacked.
I think I've just been sacked.
Yeah, because of the change in your
Prime Minister
again.
Sacked.
Yeah, but despite that, you still had the title. So if you could have had longer, what do you think? And it could be a message to the new lady who's just been given the job. What do you think they should be prioritising to try and change? I know it's a massive thing to try and change that culture because it's so embedded.
So interestingly, as a minister, regardless of what department, you're pretty powerless. You're there to just keep the balls in the air and serve your Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State will serve the Prime Minister. So actually, to try and do something radical is very, very difficult, if not impossible. You're there basically to be the person they wheel out and make an announcement and keep the balls in the air. And that's why you do see sometimes the rebadging of ideas. There's a lot of that going on at the moment. The tweaking and rebadging of something that was mentioned similar a few years ago, because they're all desperate to make a mark and to be the best minister there has been for veterans. But it's basically taking bits off that's been there before, repackaging them and going, whoa, look what I've done. There's a lot of that going on at the moment. So it is really difficult, to be fair, on ministers to get any wins. But I think if I had carte blanche to do whatever I like, well, we had Hasler, we had Woolwich. What was the RAF one? Rawton. I'd have Defence Veterans Hospital, a hospital centrally located where you train your medics, train your doctors, where you're treating service personnel, you're doing medicals for recruits and enlistment, and any spare capacity you're supporting veterans. I would have a military hospital back in this country. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, because was it Frimley used to be one? Was Frimley one? Because I remember when I first joined up and I went to a hospital, a military hospital, they thought I had a heart murmur. So I went to Aldershot and apparently I had, but I could still join up. And I'm sure that was a minute, but that,
I think Woolwich used to do service spouses as well, with any capacity they had. So I would really like to establish one of those again, and the capacity then just to help veterans as well. I think the other thing I'd like is the Veterans ID card. We need a proper discount scheme, a proper scheme. We've got so many blue like this and whatever, and it's all tweaking, and you could have 5% off your coffee on a Friday afternoon or whatever. I mean, let's just cut that and let's have a decent, proper scheme where you don't have to have 4 or 5 cards in your wallet. Your ID card sorts it out. Travel scheme, just one scheme that's decent and worth having.
Yeah, and not making money off the back of it. I know they set themselves up for CICs and stuff, but
and some franchises do offer you, 10% off a panini, some don't, and you've got to ask, and then you feel as if you're asking for charity, and
and then they'll say, oh, we don't take that one, but if you're a student, and I'm like, I'm not a bloody student, am I?
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to really get that together and start offering decent discounts and support. And then I suppose the last one has to be complete overhaul of the complaint system. complete overhaul, a completely independent, with teeth complaint system, not for things like pay or going AWOL or, for intimidation, harassment, bullying and assault, sexual assault. We need all that sort of complaint to be taken out of the chain of command and the tri-service complaints unit and what other rebadge thing we've got going around at the moment. Take all those out into a central place that's dealt with outside of units. So that's what I'd like to.
It's incredibly hard to well, when I was in, you had to, as you say, speak to your CO or your staffy or whatever, and they would generally be like, oh, well, he's a good lad, maybe he didn't mean to do it that night, or, so yeah, no, totally agree with those three things, actually. My big bugbear is the defence cards, because I've been trying to get gym membership free for veterans or discounted, and because obviously that'll then help your mental health and all that type of thing. And I've spoke to certain discount places, and that they're kind of like, well, we do enough for veterans, so yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to your time in uniform, then what do you think would the lessons you've learned, like you've transferred more into your later life and political life? Do you think there's anything you learnt there we've touched on resilience and service, really, haven't we?
Yeah, being 5 minutes early, which I was for this podcast. Being 5 minutes early, always polishing your shoes. But actually, there's the soft skills, there's the teamwork. So I'm a massive team player. I rise and fall with my team. And in Parliament, I had a really good team. Loyalty means quite a lot to me, but not blind loyalty. And, you can really get good productivity out of a team if you're all in together. I was always the first in and the last out. And actually, I worked really, really hard to the detriment of my own health whilst I was an MP. So you've got to be a little bit careful of that. But loyalty, teamwork. But in politics, it's interesting because I went into politics with that exact feeling that we're a team. We are the Conservative Party. Not many people have that attitude in politics. On the face of it, you are a team, but inside everyone's fighting for that next promotion to be favoured, to be privileged above everyone else. And, I remember I was going with really good ideas about what we could do. And I was either dismissed or they nicked my ideas. Yeah. So I soon learned that teamwork, in my definition, wasn't quite the same definition in politics. Teamwork can mean something slightly different. But certainly it's all about people for me. It's all very well having in the military, it's all very well having all this kit, but if you've got no one to work it, what is the point? And for people who want to give up or would sacrifice their lives for this country, why the heck aren't we giving them free gym membership? When they're offered that and they've sacrificed their lives and they've moved the family, around the world for 20, why aren't we offering them more? The covenant, we need to do something with the covenant. We need to have teeth in that covenant.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a bit of a
it's just not happening. You go to local authorities. As an MP, I did a lot with veterans. We have quite a large veterans community here in Wrexham, and housing. And I go to the local authority and they go, yeah, they are priority. Yeah. But we've got 5,000 on the housing list. Yeah, but where are they on that? I would like every local authority to have, I'm not sure the commissioner term's the right one, but have an armed forces commissioning team that have teeth, that can hold and almost fine the health board and the housing department and the education department when they don't uphold the covenant on behalf of veterans. Because for me, people are everything. And if they're willing to sacrifice their lives for this country, then we should be doing more for them, to say absolutely thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I find it difficult that it's the charities that have to hold councils or try and make a noise to get people rehomed or get people the vital bit of kit that they might need, and it shouldn't be. We shouldn't need to rely on the charitable sector when people, as you say, some have made the ultimate sacrifice, some have come back from war with horrendous injuries,
Mental health.
and yeah, and the ones that you can't, the invisible injuries, and
Yeah.
we're still just throwing most of them on the scrap heap.
Yeah. And it's society, isn't it, as well? So the state has pushed more of its what was old obligations onto the charitable sector. Now, the charitable sector, they will say, get paid for it to a certain degree, not enough from the state, but the state has done that. And they do it in health and social care as well. Particularly in social care, you're relying more and more on the charities who are exhausted. Like, salute her. They fight. It's a small charity. They fight for every penny they've got. They're not a big charity. They don't get the millions of pounds that go to, Help for Heroes or SAFA or the COBSIO charities. They're a small charity with something that people find a little bit distasteful. MST, military sexual trauma. Most people clutch their pearls. Oh my God, I don't even want to think about it. Well, actually, you do need to think about it because it's happening. It needs to change. You need to acknowledge it, and you need to support the women and men that have gone through it. And this charity, like a lot of the smaller charities that are doing really good work on the ground, but not forgotten, charity is another one. They're struggling for money, and yet the bigger charities seem to get these 500,000, 1 million, 750,000. And actually, for me as well, I'm not cynical about charities because they do play a pivotal role in supporting society as a whole. But I would just like to just look at the 1,800 veterans charities, service charities, not veterans, service charities we have, and just see what value they are making on the ground to the veterans that need that support. And that might be something else.
One as well. It's smaller ones, as you say, they struggle. Woody's Lodge, which is a Welsh veteran charity that I support, that they at one point this year it was really struggling with funds.
I think they are. I think
what they exactly what they do, because it's such a small charity.
Yeah, and I know when I was sat by the good people of Wrexham, Woody's Lodge have a charity shop. I love charity shops. Woody's Lodge has a charity shop in Wrexham, and the people who run it are friends of mine, and they were going away for 2 weeks. They did a rota for people to help out, and I did a couple of shifts in the charity shop. Loved talking to people, and the amount of veterans that were coming in, people visiting Wrexham or wanting help and support. I mean, it was phenomenal, actually, that we used to have an RBL pop-up place in Wrexham, and that closed. And they were coming into the charity shop asking, well, where's the housing place? What do we do about this? And there's still that need out there, despite all these service charities and all the money going into it. I just sometimes wonder whether they're on the right track here. And actually, for me, it's about whether that person can get out of his bed into a wheelchair. Is the wheelchair, can he get down on that wheelchair into the ramp? How is he living? Where's his mental health? What happens if he has a mental health episode? Who does he call? I mean, there's so many on there. They've got this gateway. They've got these new initiatives coming out with the MOD. You go to one place to find out what's going on. It just doesn't happen like that. And people don't know what's available. And then what is available may not even meet their needs. So anyway, I'm waffling a bit there. But I think the whole defence military charity sector probably needs to look at.
Yeah, because there's a lot fighting against each other and fighting, and it needs to be more of a cooperative.
It's funny you should say that, because obviously I still do a lot for women in defence behind the scenes across the ecosystem, not just with MST, but in the defence industry for STEM. And since my report, there's been a lot of focus on women in the defence sector, in the defence domain. And there's money out there. And these charities, the bigger charities, are almost jockeying for position because there's money there to be had. And I'm going, well, that's fine, that's great. But I just want to make sure the services you're offering. So if a woman's been raped, I personally don't think it's appropriate that she phones a helpline, which is only there Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, by the way, and you get a man on the phone, but they've got £500,000 of taxpayers' money to offer that service. So there is a bit there about the service charities. We can't do without them. They're doing a great job, but I think possibly they could do a little bit better.
Yeah. So you've now, moving on a little bit, you've left the Conservatives and you've moved to the Reform. And your main reason is because of what we've been talking about, that you know, the
Well,
British,
do you know what? There's a lot of reasons, Gina. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. As I say about blind loyalty, I don't follow blind loyalty. I did with the Conservative government a lot for women in defence. We shifted the dial there completely, and that is really good work. But it wasn't, it wasn't for the want of bloody mindedness and hard work on my part, and just that sheer persistence, because everyone just wanted me to go away. The MOD still probably just want me to go away. But
sure they do, yeah.
Yeah. They didn't think. Yeah, I don't think they quite realised what they were taking on.
No.
So I am disappointed what's happening with veterans. I'm in Wales. We're a slightly different ball game here. We've had one Labour government for 26 years, and our services are on their knees. And people are absolutely fed up, not just our veterans, but people in general. Council tax is going up, potholes are getting bigger. Everything is just, because it's never been challenged in 26 years. As I was just saying before, we've got the worst health service in the UK, worst educational attainment, some of it in Europe, and we've got to do better. So there was that motivation behind that, particularly being a nurse and social worker. Our health and social care is shocking. But also about veterans. And I went to a symposium. I won't say which university. I now was a guest speaker there at symposium for MST, speaking out. And we had about 90 people in the room, men and women, they were either advocates, lawyers, or serving personnel or charities. Most of them there had experienced some sexual trauma. And of course, it was open to everyone. So we had 4 people from the MOD. And this is what triggered me to do what I've just done. And we had 3 MOD people at the top, and with another one in the crowd somewhere. And we had one session, and it was really intense. And it was, we had therapists there to help people, and it was quite traumatic. People were opening up. And the very last session, which I was hosting, was just a Q&A. And one of the women in the MOD, I swear she was a plant. She was agitated, aggressive. Me, I want to say something. And she constantly butted in. She spoke over people. She triggered people there. She did not read the room whatsoever. She triggered people. And her colleagues at the back were just taking notes from them. They're not supposed to take notes because obviously there's confidential stuff going on there. The lawyers in the room had to stop this woman a few times and say, "You're wrong there." And in the end, I was thinking, she's really upsetting people. People are quite disturbed by her approach. And she is MOD. And they're here because of MOD. And at the very end, she wanted to speak for about the 4th time. And I just said, "No, I'm sorry, please be quiet. There are people here that haven't spoken." And the session ended. She'd had 3 chips, chipped in 3 times. And one of the guys at the back, one of her colleagues, as they were leaving, said, "Oh, a speaking out symposium when you're told to be quiet." And I just thought, that is it. That is it. This MOD cannot carry on like it is anymore. I was actually quite triggered and traumatized by it, because we had all these people in there that I had nothing to offer them. We'd come to a full stop. And yet the MOD still had this attitude. And people were leaving, having to go to the therapists and in shock, and because of this woman's attitude. And her colleague said basically, "Well, this is nonsense, isn't it? You get cancelled if you come here speaking out." I don't think so. And I just thought, I came away and I was quite shocked and upset. And I came away and thought, I've got to get back in. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed for these people. What's going to happen about the women serving now? What's going to happen about this new recruit I met this morning joining the army? This has got to stop. Something has to change. And the attitude I saw from the MOD in that auditorium spoke volumes to me. So that's another reason why I joined Reform. Plus, I'm very much Britain first. I'm very much a patriot.
Yeah, and they, I'd imagine, stand a better chance of getting in than the Conservatives in Wales, realistically.
Well, something has got to change, and I've got a lot to give. I've got all these skills to give. I live in Wales. We're on our knees as a nation, really, as where we are with health and social care and whatever. But there's so much more to do for veterans. There's so much more to do for service women, and the culture, from what I've seen, has not changed in the military.
No, no, I think you're right, and it was. I remember when I saw you before the election and just after, I think, and I remember thinking, because the way you were in Parliament at a really difficult time, I think, to be really fair to you, 2019 during COVID, and then during all the changes with different prime ministers. So it was really hard, tough time because you had to keep changing what you were doing and different leadership, and it must have been hard. But then, because of how the country took what happened with COVID and stuff, it was sort of inevitable that old Labour areas were going to switch back to old Labour. So it was kind of like, you've done, because I know what you've done. I knew you'd done so much in government that potentially your local constituencies wouldn't have, voters known about it, which was really sad. Then, that you didn't get your seat back, which was, I felt quite sad, sad for you, because I knew you personally how much you'd done. So hopefully in the next election, whenever that may be, because I know people are calling for it now or soon, and it'll keep increasing that voice, won't it? That you'll get back in and you can start where you left off, or probably a bit further.
But it's a shame. Politics is absolutely brutal. I've got some great colleagues. The old Defence Committee, we get on so well. We're still in touch. We all had differences, but we worked together for the military, for defence. And that's how Parliament can and does work. You just don't see it.
It should work, shouldn't it?
And you just don't see it when you watch PMQs, which is basically a theatre.
I think we saw it during COVID, I think, personally, because, and that's how it was a bit like a wartime government, wasn't it? Where everybody was working against one enemy. And it was really nice to see that there wasn't any of this pettiness going on in the chamber. Everybody was agreeing.
It does happen.
You just don't see it in the public.
You just don't see it. And I'm very much collegiate, as I say, I'm a team player. I'll very much work with everyone. And, I don't take offence too readily. I don't mind a bit of banter. I don't take offence too readily. I give and take with people. And I think that's a really good attitude to have, because you get more done. But as we were saying before, the last election, it was brutal. I knew months and months beforehand, despite all the work I'd done, that I certainly wasn't going to be elected again, which disappointed me really, because I knew the minute I left Parliament, the MOD would breathe a massive sigh of relief and think, oh, thank God that woman's gone.
Yeah.
And I see some of the ripple effect of that now. And that's one of the many reasons why I want to get back in to continue this work for veterans and service personnel and the families.
Yeah, definitely. And you are still fighting for that cause, just albeit not with as much, dare I say, power. Or influence.
Power and influence. So I do go on the media. I'm on the media tomorrow. I do try and go on the media a lot, because that's the biggest tool I've got. The most influential tool I've got now is my media contacts. So I try and go on the media as much as possible, just to keep that profile up. Because if I can keep that profile up, then it's more pressure on ministers. It's more pressure on the MOD to do things. things have changed in 5 years. They have. They've moved, but it's the low-hanging fruit again. And the big issues that really impact people's lives for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
The rape, the intimidation, the PTSD inducing behavior, all that is still there. Complaint system.
Yeah. So we haven't, I think we could probably talk for hours, but we haven't, I try to keep everything to an hour, but sometimes I feel a bit mean because it's really important stuff we're talking about. So looking ahead, what do you think? If you had the blank piece of paper, I think we've maybe talked about it, haven't we? How do you think the UK should engage with service personnel and support?
I think I get very angry with what's happening with Northern Ireland and Soldier F and Soldier B, and I'm very angry about that. It's interesting because we should not be hauling people back in. Once there's been an investigation against because of an incident, that should be it. There should be a full stop. They should not be hauled back in 50 years' time. It's an absolute nonsense. And what message is that giving to recruits today, or anyone, or our police, or anyone who has to carry a weapon to protect our country? What message does that give to them? Oh yes, we'll command you to fire. You fire, but when you're 80, we'll haul you back over to the courts. So I'm very concerned about what's going on in Northern Ireland. That needs to be addressed. And that does not mean, service personnel or police or anyone else who carries firearms has carte blanche to commit murder. That's not what we're saying, or that's not what I'm saying. But this is ridiculous, what's happening to these service personnel. And equally, who was their commanders? We see the soldiers in the dock, the paras in the dock. We don't see their commanders who gave the order in the dock. So I'm really concerned about what's going on there. We need to support our veterans much more under the Covenant. We need to expand our army. Oh, we were talking about ships before. It's slightly embarrassing how few ships we've got. And of the ships we've got, I was in Portsmouth not so long ago, the Type 45s. There was only one out at sea along with the carrier.
Yeah.
All the rest.
Yeah, I've worked on them for years, and they'd all. There's probably one in Liverpool dock at the minute getting refitted or something.
I was supposed to go out on Dragon, which was the second one that could go out to sea. I was supposed to go out, have a little tootle around the Solent, and it went tech. And I just laughed and said, so that means we've got one Type 40. For this day, we've got one Type 45 out at sea or able to go to sea.
And there's four, isn't there?
We went to great lengths to say, oh no, if we had to go to sea, we would go to sea. Yeah, it's not a good look though, is it? No,
so, not when you haven't got the personnel to staff it.
Or the aircraft.
Yeah.
You haven't got the crew. So there's a bit about procurement. That's a nightmare. I do feel sorry for Minister Luke Pollard on that one. Or it's not defence procurement anymore, is it? It's readiness, defence readiness and industry. This is the whole rebadging thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll all continue to call it defence procurement. But, we need to do more for our veterans, more for the service families, particularly around schools, housing. The quality of military housing is a long-standing issue. And this money they've now announced, it's great, fantastic. It's old money. It's been re-announced I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
But it's good. It needs to be done. So there's a lot we could do, particularly around. Actually, recruitment is starting. It's still down, but it's starting to pick up a bit. Retention is catastrophic. The retention is something they really need to look at, and that's down to morale and probably poor leadership.
And retention's always been an issue, I think, because
it's the hemorrhaging.
Yeah,
and it's operational effectiveness.
Yeah, a lot don't stay after 3 years, do they? Because that's they've signed the I think they've increased it to 4 years now.
Oh, have they?
To try and stop it. Keep them for next year.
I was talking to 2 recruits in the Navy, one recruit and one in the Navy, and he said, look, I've done 4 years, I've now got a girlfriend, I want to start a family, I want to get a house, And the other one said, I was in holding for that long. I didn't even make it through training because I got bored. And all they were telling us to do was go and pick up litter in the local town or go to the gym. And he says, I'm a technical person. He went in as an electrician to join the Navy. And he said the lights went down in the block. I'm not going to say which block because I might have got it wrong. He said, I'll fix them. Oh, no. You've got to get Serco or whoever it was in. Yeah. And he said, but they're doing it all wrong. I can sort it out. And he left. He said, I'm fed up being told to go to the gym while I'm waiting for training places. So there's a lot of wet rot in the system that needs rooting out.
That really surprised, because that happened. So when did I go for training? 96. And my training was 14 months. But some of us were waiting 6 months to a year before we'd start that training. So you like you say, you'd have been in 2 years, 2.5 years before you'd even deployed. Yeah. I mean, I know the training's long, but if you've got a 6 month to a year backup before you start your training, and we used to call it was Charlie Troop, and we used to just all sit in this room and wait to see if we'd be summoned to, brush leaves or do something. Or
absolutely.
There'd be hundreds of us out there, and it probably is, from the sound of it, still the same holding troop.
I think, if you've got young, bright, motivated people, they're going to go somewhere else, aren't they? Of course they're going to go somewhere else.
You've just come out of basic, haven't you? So you're like, yay, and then the next thing.
And then the other thing is you've got sailors that have been in the Navy for 11 years, never been to sea. The whole thing is just all over the place. And then we've got service chiefs saying, oh, we need to be ready for a war. There's a war coming, 5 years. And it's like, well, should we get on a bit of a war footing then? Why don't we sort some of this out?
Yeah.
And nothing seems to be happening. And that worries me. And that actually worries a lot of people I'll speak to on the street, veterans who perhaps know a little bit more than Joe Blogs on the street.
Yeah.
They're saying, well, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we? We're supposed to be preparing. And it just nothing. It's just stasis. Nothing's happening. So it's interesting. I do feel we're just marking time at the moment. And I don't know marking time for what. I don't know what the end game is, but it doesn't feel as if we're getting ready or preparing or rearming or, I don't know, I might be out the loop a bit, and I'm conscious I probably am. But it doesn't seem to be any urgency there with what's going on. It just seems, as I said at the beginning, just keeping the balls in the air.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll get back in the loop soon, in the next couple of years. So is there anything that because I'm conscious we have a lot to talk about. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that we maybe should have touched upon? Would you want to talk about?
No, we've probably gassed enough, haven't we, really?
Yeah. It's all very important stuff, to be fair. So to lighten the mood, and I ask this for every person, who was your either superhero or role model growing up?
Oh, do you know what? I'm going to be really boring here, and it's got to be my recruitment sergeant, the female I met when I was nearly 18. My mother wouldn't sign when I was 17 and 3 months, nearly 18 to go into the army, because she saw potential in me. The raw potential. That's pretty cool. She saw the raw potential in me, and she was the one that set me on this track. I wish I knew her name. I wish I knew where she was, to say, actually, all this advancement we have done with women in the armed forces was actually due to you. You did it. You did it. Yeah. You got me on the track when no one else was really interested. I was drifting. Yeah. You got me on that track because you had faith in me. And you pushed through all the medicals and the eye tests, and you made sure, and you spoke to my mother who didn't want to go in the army. And you were the one that did it. So she's my hero. Yeah. I hope at some point she picks up on something and she realizes I'm talking about her.
Yeah. And I guess also there wasn't normally many women who were in the recruitment sort of centres. So
no, I know. But Chester, I think we're just lucky. Yeah.
I ended up I was obviously Merseyside, Liverpool, and then I was in Chester for a little bit because going for my officer, and they used to send the officers down there. So, so no Chester. Yeah. That's
actually just thinking about the only thing that we didn't pick up on, which worries me a little bit is if we have a national emergency, would our young people fight?
Yeah, and a lot of people have said that they wouldn't, which is
Worrying.
very worrying. You know, like Ukraine type.
Yeah. Would they fight? It's funny because all the old veterans are all like, yeah, I'll get my berry back on it. Like,
Yeah, give me a gun.
give me a gun. Yeah, we have to have your Raljecks first because you're
Yeah, have some army smarties and get your
your
knees going.
Raljecks and your dose of senna in the morning, your prunes, and then we'll set you off.
Yeah,
But seriously, would our young people fight for this country? Interesting one. And who wouldn't fight? And would the ones fighting say that's not fair?
Yeah.
The whole issue there. So that's the issue that, does worry me.
Yeah, I think because I do a lot with the army cadets, and I talk about the army cadets and how amazing it is for hours. I think when I see those young minds and people, it restores my faith in the youth. But unfortunately, it's not as widespread, and youth organisations are constantly being cut, and then there's more drains on, the scouts and that type of thing. I think they're like your role model,
Mm.
The next
You get
leaders.
the paramilitaries in the nicest sense.
Yeah,
Military preparation colleges. Military
Yeah.
preparation colleges are also, there's the paramilitary, I understand. Yeah, I get that. And so that worries me.
Yeah. Yeah, because as we get older, I'm like, can I defend myself anymore? I've got to wait for these lot to look after me.
Because I got a bad back.
Yeah, I can't even make it up and down the stairs without panting.
Just in Everest as well.
Yeah, that was my training. So people can find you online, mainly LinkedIn, isn't it?
I do LinkedIn for professional stuff,
Yeah.
and then local political stuff, and is Facebook and Instagram. I'm off Twitter for now. I just get fed up with death threats.
Yeah.
So I'm off Twitter for now. So it's really LinkedIn.
Yeah, which we can find you. So and it's quite a nice question for this one, because we're on the eve of sort of remembrance. So the podcast's called Beyond the Barracks. So what does Beyond the Barracks mean to you?
Well, it's obviously life after the army. But for me, it's about the resilience piece. It's about life doesn't go to plan. My life hasn't gone to plan. Don't look at me now and think, oh, well, she must be so super strong. I'm not. I've had my ups and downs, believe me, and things haven't been easy. But actually, just keep going, dig deep, because as veterans, we do pull ourselves up when we can. We all need support at some point in our life, and it's not an issue whatsoever to ask for that. But we do tend to try and get back on track. And we need to, give ourselves space and credit for that. And actually, life is exciting. You don't know what's around the corner, but you've got to take those opportunities when they come. And, just hold on to the fact sometimes, life is a roller coaster, but that's life. And actually, it's great.
Yeah, I love that, because I think a lot of people, and because we spoke about social media, they'll see people's lives looking amazing on social media, but it's not. Life is, as you say, ups and downs and full of failures, because that's the failures what teaches you the lesson, isn't it? And resilience. And
because we get taught failure's wrong. It's not wrong. It's not wrong at all. Failure's good, but you've got to learn from it. Failure is not a bad thing. The Americans don't mind failure at all. As Brits, see it as a negative thing. And life is, it is warts and all. It is taking Brufen because you've got aches and pains and senna in the morning and your prunes and, running up and down the stairs and getting breathless. And, it's not glamorous. True life isn't glamorous. And, what we see on social media, this is why I don't do an awful lot of social media, because sometimes that's not really true life. And of course, with AI now and all this false media, malinformation, misinformation, you don't quite know what you're getting. So you've got to be so careful.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that's exactly right. We do need to learn. People need to. I think if you stop learning from your failures, that's when failures won. If you don't move on from it and build from that, and the most of the greats and even the famous veterans out there, they've all had failure, which has built their resilience, which has made them great people and heroes, even if they didn't see it themselves.
That was so eloquent. That was almost good enough to go on the side of a mug.
I'll have it on my new mugs. when I get more than 100 followers, then
101 get free mugs.
Yeah. Oh well, it's been brilliant catching up, because we normally bump into each other at the Soldiering On Awards, and I couldn't make it this year and stuff. So, but yeah, so it's been great to catch up. Although we're not a million miles away from each other now, so I'm sure we'll find each other in some random veterans place at some point.
We will. Did you come to the Women's Veterans Breakfast? Was it you that turned up there in Wrexham? No. I just bump into people in all the bizarre places.
Yeah, but yeah, so I can't remember where the next place will be, but it'll be somewhere soon, probably Woodies or something like that.
Woodies, yeah. Well, we're all on parade this weekend.
Yeah. Oh, that's what I should ask. What are you doing before we go? What are you doing for this weekend? Are you going to Wrexham?
Oh gosh, yeah, do it every year. So I'm selling poppies, as I always do every year, in Asda on Saturday, and then on parade, laying a wreath on Sunday. And then I go to the Royal Bells Fusilier for a few beers, and then it's carnage. We all know what it's like. It's carnage, and it goes downhill. And then we go to the War Memorial Club in Wrexham. All the veterans associations come there. Some of the crew from HMS Dragon, because I twinned Wrexham with HMS Dragon when I was in office here. Some of those will come up, and it just gets leery, as Remembrance does. So yeah, I always look forward to Remembrance.
Yeah, I do as well. Well, it's been great chatting. So I'll see you in some random place at some point.
All right.
Thanks for coming on. And then I'll get you back on when you're an MP again, if you're allowed.
To wait a while. Or perhaps not.
Hopefully not. Take care.
Bye.